Hi, this is James Gordon here with the fourth book in the Jack Ryan John Clark series. The book I'll be talking about today, The Hunt for October. Nothing on the back, it's just a bunch of reviews from other authors and magazines. Alright. This is from Navy Institute Press, and this was first published on October 1st, 1984. This was a reread. I read this book back in high school along with Patriot Games, so it was fun reading this book again. While it had parts I enjoyed and it had an interesting cast of characters it follows in the story with others I despised. However, there were some issues I had with this book. There was some serious pacing issues that I felt really dragged on the story, kind of similar to a problem I had with Patriot Games, where Clancy is focusing too much on other things and adding some unwanted filler, which dragged on the story a bit, and a couple other things I didn't like. But overall, this was still a good book. However, I felt that the film with the same name is a lot better than the book it's based on, but I'll explain more about that later on in my review. Alright, onto the book review. Plot. On December 3rd, 1984, Captain Marco Ramius, who's the top Soviet sub-commander, has been given the USSR's newest sub to test. Red October, a Typhoon-class sub that's capable of launching several nuclear warheads and is also equipped with a caliper drive, engines that move it through the water silently, making it difficult to track on radar. After being pulled out into sea by a tugboat, Ramius orders Red October to dive along with activating its caliper drive. After briefing the crew of their mission, Ramius goes to the wardroom with political officer Ivan Yurievich Putin. Ivan reveals what Ramius' orders are from Moscow, as they are to meet up with an Alfie-class attack sub, the VK Kanavalog, under the command of Viktor Tuplov, a former student of Ramius. Once they meet up with the sub, they'll conduct a series of experiments to test the new Typhoon sub. However, Ramius has other plans. Once Ivan has his back turned, Ramius knocks him down and breaks his neck, then spills his tea onto the floor, making it look like an accident. Ramius calls Dr. Petrov, who examines the body, believing it was an accident. He wishes to report his death back to Moscow, but Ramius states they cannot, as they've been given radio silence, which he won't break, nor abort the mission. The body is taken to storage as Ramius takes the con and addresses the crew that they are heading for Cuba and flex the latest in Soviet technology with their new caliper drive. A few days later, Jack Ryan, a history teacher for the Navy and an analyst for the CIA, leaves his home in England and catches a flight to Virginia, takes a cab to the CIA building to meet with James Greer, DDI, Deputy Director Intelligence, along with Rear Admiral Charles Davenport. Ryan has brought a series of photos taken by an undercover agent for SIS, Secret Intelligence Service. The images show the newest and largest Soviet sub known as Red October. As Ryan explains what little information they have on the sub, he points out 4 large doors that he nor SIS can't identify what they are. Both James and Charles think it's some sort of weapon. However, Ryan doesn't believe it and asks James permission to show these images to a sub-engineer, Skip Tyler, who might be able to figure out what they are. James agrees and calls for a car to take him to Tyler. Ryan goes to the submarine plant in Rhode Island and finds Tyler working on a rescue sub that can attach itself to any sub from any country. Ryan shows the photos to Tyler, but is told he cannot share them with anyone else as they're classified. Tyler examines the hatch doors and agrees that they aren't for weapons and believes the hatches are for a tunnel drive. Like a jet engine, it sucks water and pushes the sub silently. He tells Ryan the Americans tried it and couldn't get it to work, but it seems the Soviets have figured out a way to do it. He wants to examine the photos more, along with running some tests. Ryan agrees and offers $20,000 to do it, but can't share this information with anyone. Tyler accepts. Meanwhile, the USS Dallas, a Los Angeles-class sub, is out on patrol near Iceland. Sonar technician Roland Jones, with his partner Roger Thompson. Jones is a very skilled sonar man who trusts his instincts more than the machine, along with listening to his Bach tapes on his expensive tape player. Jones picked up a class Typhoon sub earlier but lost it. However, he hears other subs moving in the area. Captain Bart Mancuso wants Jones to keep searching for the lost sub. On December 8th, Ryan's investigation on the Red October is called off when James Greer calls him for an urgent meeting at the White House. James shows Ryan classified files sent to him as there's been a report of ships and subs leaving the Soviet Union as the large fleet appears to be searching for something and they can't find where Red October is. James clears Ryan through the high security as he is the only one that understands the subject better than the rest and wants him to explain to the president, staff, and other members of CIA what he knows about the Red October. Ryan briefs the men inside the room along with the president on the Soviet sub along with its captain Marco Ramius, then shows them photos taken by the British spies of Red October along with its hatches, which are in fact a caliper drive allowing it to move silently through the water as it carries more warheads than American subs. Ryan then shows the image taken from the spy satellite showing the whole Soviet fleet leaving harbor heading out in the last known direction of Red October, and reveals Ramius sent a letter which caused the Soviet fleet to leave at once. While many members of staff along the CIA believe that Ramius is planning to trigger World War III by launching warheads on American soil. However, Ryan doesn't believe that, and he theorizes that Ramius wants to defect, not attack. Many do not believe this. However, Arthur Judge Moore, director of Central Intelligence, believes Ryan's theory and wants him to go out to find the Red October before the Soviets do. Ryan is sent out to the North Atlantic Sea on a rough ride through stormy weather. He reaches the USS Kennedy aircraft carrier, and waiting for him is Davenport. Ryan goes to speak with Admiral Joshua Painter in his flag quarters. Ryan explains what he's doing here along with his mission. While Painter is skeptical about Ramius' plan and believes he's a threat, however, Davenport is on Ryan's side as he needs to reach the aircraft carrier, the HMS Invincible. Painter accepts to help Ryan reach it, but will use a two-seater Harrier jet as helicopters won't be able to reach it. Back on the USS Dallas, Jones has spent hours cleaning up the tapes and editing out all the noise till he finds something that sounds man-made. He brings his finds to Bart and plays the tape of the recorded noise. At first hears nothing until Jones speeds up the tape, which they hear a thumping sound. Jones then uses a chart and map along with pointing where the noise was and where it was last heard. Impressed with his work, Bart has both Jones and Thompson rest until they reach the area, now knowing what sound the Red October makes. As the hunt for Red October continues, both the US and USSR are getting hostile with each other as both ships, planes, and subs are near each other, with one wrong move will trigger World War III. With the Red October getting closer to the US waters, a sudden sabotage event causes major problems for Ramius, believing there's a spy among his crew but doesn't know who it is. Then the USS Dallas catches up with Red October as the two subs send messages through scopes by flashing lights. Ramius is shocked to learn the Americans already know about the sub and what his plan is. They also warned him that Soviets are waiting to attack Red October should he try fleeing any further. Knowing he needs help, Ramius fakes a radiation leak, forcing most of the crew off the sub, while Ryan, along with William White, along with some of the crew from the Dallas board Red October to aid in Ramius' plan. But things aren't over yet as they have to find the spy hidden within Red October and take out Victor, who's hell-bent on killing them. Ryan and the others must work together or they'll become the hunted. The Hunt for October was a decent Cold War filler, very detailed in locations, heavily layered characters, and the many military ships and aircraft within the story. While pacing was alright, but there were parts I felt it was getting slow when Clancy shifted focus away from the main plot by adding two subplots which I didn't like, as this both slows down the pacing along with taking me out of the story. While it was interesting following the two sides facing against each other with intense moments between the US and Soviet forces. Like the main character Jack Ryan, along with Marco Ramius and the others that we follow within the story, and others I disliked. I also like the backstory with Victor on why he's so hell-bent on killing Ramius. However, in a later scene, Clancy reveals a major plot point that gives away what's going on in the Red October and would have rather Clancy not reveal who's sabotaging the sub. While the beginning part of the novel is good with the second act building up more suspense, but the third act is where it begins to slow down with the two subplots taking up most of the story, along with the finale that was decent but felt it could have been better if Clancy cut out the subplots and kept more focus between the US and Soviet forces. Lastly, I felt some scenes weren't necessary and wish Clancy cut a few of them out just to keep the pacing going and not shifting away from the main plot of the novel. However, the 1990 film of the same name starring Alec Boland, Sean Connery, Sam Neill, James Earl Jones, Scott Glenn, and Stellan Skarsgård I liked a lot better, improving the story, cutting out the subplots, and keeping the action where I want it, building up suspense, well-shot scenery with excellent soundtrack, solid acting, and John McTiernan does a great job of taking Clancy's novel, improving it, and delivering a better finale. Overall, The Hunt for October is still worth a read. It has its moments that I'm sure any Cold War thriller fan would like, but as I said before, I feel the film The Same Name is a lot better. Still, it's worth checking out this early 80s Cold War thriller classic. That's the review today. Hope you enjoyed. Yeah, it was fun reading Hunt for October again. As I said, it had its moments I enjoyed. I absolutely loved the beginning part where the book features Marco Ramius on the Red October as it's being taken out to sea, and there's this beautiful winter scenery up in Norway, and then he goes into the sub, and then he briefs his crew of their mission, and then when he gets to his quarters, and he's talking about Ivan, about their plans. With an instant, Ramis suddenly turns on Ivan and kills him in a very brutal way, which I really enjoyed. It was like this intense moment, and in the film, I really like this scene as well because it's this very tight space that they're in. So Ramis has to put a lot of strength in to take down Ivan, and he does an excellent job killing this character in a very brutal way, and then making his death look like an accident, of course. And then Ramis' real plans are, and then later on, Jack Ryan comes into the story where he's got these classified pictures of the Red October, and he shows them to James Greer, and they're curious about what this new Soviet sub is, and then his investigation is interrupted when the Soviets have issued an order to hunt the Red October and sink it because they believe Ramis is a threat, and many members of the President's staff and CIA believe that Ramis is a threat to the United States, and Ryan doesn't believe that. He's trying to prove his theory that Ramis wants to defect, and this whole scene is really intense and is really good. I really enjoyed that. So then it follows Ryan trying to find the Red October along with the USS Dallas, which I enjoyed that scene as well, along with Ramis trying to reach the U.S. waters with dealing with all the problems on the sub and stuff, and trying to keep his plan trying to keep his plan going while dealing with the saboteur on his sub. I really enjoyed that. However, like I said, towards the second and third act is where Clancy starts adding these subplots, and this really starts to slow the pacing down the story, and it shifts focus away from the story. There's this whole subplot with this mysterious spy known as the Colonel, and as I'm reading this, it's like, who is this Colonel character? I'm not interested in him. I want to read more about what's going on with the Red October and Jack Ryan and the U.S. Dallas. Like, who is this character? What role does the Colonel play a part of? This is a character that's mentioned frequently through both Hunt for October and Red Rabbit, and I believe he's also mentioned a little bit in Patriot Games. Like, who is this Colonel character? Like, who is this character? I'm gonna find out who this character is when I go to read the next book in the Jack Ryan and John Clark series, the Colonel in the Kremlin. But who is this character? What role does he play? And it just, like, I was getting annoyed when the story shifted focused away from the October to this other character, and it's just some spy that the CIA is trying to make sure that nothing happens to him. I thought, does he have any role to play with the Red October? If not, then why are you bringing this character up? And then there's this other subplot where there's a spy leaking information from the CIA, and it's like, why are you adding this? You're taking me out of the story. Don't do that. So that was the one thing I didn't like, and like the other show I had with Patriot Games, Clancy adds a few scenes that just kind of like he's showing a little too much, and there's actually a lot of more depth in this book than I remembered. I was thinking it was going to be kind of similar to the film, but no, there's a lot of other characters that get killed off in the story, and I was actually surprised. I was like, okay, I didn't think there's a part where a Soviet sub is like trying to desperately catch up with the Red October, and it ends up burning its like engine out, and the captain decides to rather kill the crew than be captured by the Americans. I thought, was this really necessary, Clancy? Did you really have to add this? And then A few other scenes I didn't like. As for the finale, it was okay, but again, I felt the movie improved this a lot better. With the Red October facing against Victor's sub, which I like that scene a lot better than how it was handled in the book. Overall, this was it was Red October is still a good thriller, but as I said, I feel the film of the same is a lot better. Alright, that's for the review today. Hope you enjoyed it. And for the next book in the Jack Ryan John Clark series, The Cardinal of the Kremlin, I know nothing about this book. The only thing I know about this book is that this character, the Cardinal, has been mentioned so many times in later books, and now I want to know who the hell is this Cardinal character. So I'm about to find out when I go to read this book next. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and please don't forget to subscribe to October Library, the YouTube channel where I post book reviews, book hauls, and our fiction-related content. Until then, I'll catch you later.